How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So,
Oh, nice. Excellent. Well, me too. I've got two kids that are going to be homesick from school tomorrow, so this will be definitely be the highlight of my week in more ways than one.
at this
Wait,
point, when isn't your household sick?
Oh, fuck, I don't know. It's school,
Like,
man. Like if you have kids,
yeah.
be prepared to be sick. It's kindergarten. It's the kindergarten is just a
no.
cesspool. Yeah, that happened to Eliza when she was little, and it's same thing with Alex. So
Jeez.
yeah,
Because I feel like just a couple of weeks ago you were sick.
Alex and
And
I
I
were
feel
sick. Yeah.
like, yeah, and I feel like now it's like every time I talk to you, but hopefully you remain healthy and
Yeah.
hopefully it's a speedy recovery for
Yeah.
Wait,
Well,
Eliza.
wait, what is it? What do you guys have? Is it
oh,
just a
just
cold?
cold, just good old fashioned
Oh,
cold. Yeah. Well, for now, until we start testing
yeah.
ourselves or whatever, right? But it's
Mhm.
we'll see. But yeah, no, yeah, like all my work is done. Like today was the official last day. Haunted Cowboy Sounds is done. It's ready to go to DistroKid. Well, I got to finish the cover, but so I can afford to be sick for a couple of days if I need to be.
I
Uh,
cannot operate that way. If I'm
Yeah.
sick, I am not going to do anything
Yeah.
at all.
really,
Yeah.
Sydney?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sam, I'll say the same thing to you that I said to Sydney the first time we had one of our meetings. Was like, it's mind blowing for me to have your voice in my ears. Like I listen to the podcast so much, and I'm sure we'll go into detail on that. But it's just an honor to have this chance. It's an honor to know you. It's an honor to have this chance to chat, and
Oh,
it's awesome. Yeah,
oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yeah, you have
yeah,
been nothing short of a pleasure.
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
it
That
definitely
feeling.
means the world. And
Yeah.
then when you reach out to me, I told Sydney immediately, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I just felt finally like I had some kind of value
Yeah,
for
nice. Well,
for the pot.
same goes both ways. Same for me. Like I was telling Sydney too, because we've had the chance to talk more. But like
Mhm.
for me, like it'll in February, this will be 30 years that I've been doing this, and with the big chunk of
Congrats.
time off in between. Thank you. But this is like sometimes you feel like you're just shouting into the void, right? And like this is. I'm so touched to be asked to do this. Not only that I hope that someday this would happen, I thought it would take like 4 or 5 years. So I'm very excited it's happening now. But it's validation. Like somebody you've heard me, like you see me, like you're
Mhm.
recognizing like, hey, this, you exist, Andrew. Like it means a lot. It means the world to me. So, and you're both very famous in my household. Like my girls will both be like, oh, did you listen to we do talking time with Alex before like bedtime, and she'd be like, oh, are you listening to the podcast tonight? I am. Or they'll come home from school like, were you messaging with Sydney and Sam today? I was like, oh, I did actually. Yes, I was messaging with them. I'm like,
Oh,
We're gonna have to have them
and
on sometime.
okay,
Just bring the
and
entire.
yeah, right.
Quite frankly, Andrew, you're like different than any of our guests that we ever had before.
yeah,
Like, I feel
thank
like
you.
it's more. No, but I
Yeah,
mean, because you guys have been in contact, like
yeah,
you listen, you have
You're
one
learning
conversation.
how the sausage is made.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's all right. You are too.
You'll
You're
s
seeing my album come to life,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah,
like,
no,
yeah,
I love it, but Smith, what I was gonna say, going back is I met his whole entire family already, so I already know all those names.
yeah.
They're good
Oh
names
yeah.
so
Well,
far.
Eliza wanted to come and say, can I come say hi? I'm like, well, not tonight, sweetie. This is more professional than just like coming. And it's past her bedtime anyway. But
Yeah.
then she'll come here and just stand here and not say anything. So it's like, yeah,
It's so adorable, and then it'll be
yeah,
just me and Andrew talking and her, like, going off the
yeah,
screen. I'm like
yeah, yeah.
it's adorable. So also, I had another point to that, by the way. I feel like a lot of the times, especially when you're not in the industry or when you don't talk about it, is the fact that people put us in buckets, So like
Mhm.
not everyone, like even now, like even if like what I'm talking about in the podcast is what I do in my daily life, uh people are still finding out about it. And I'm like,
Mm.
I thought I was being kind of annoying posting about that, but I guess it doesn't break through because of the
Yeah,
algorithms and
Mhm.
also because
yeah,
like people just see you as something else in a lot of the time. So
yeah,
yeah, that's really
100%.
cool
The
that you're
yeah,
getting
compartmentalizing.
yeah, that's really cool that you're getting that like validation that you're like
yeah,
doing something outside of work.
yeah. Yeah, 'cause even for me, for like musically or whatever, right? Like it's people like a lot of people like they think like, oh, if I click like on your Facebook post, like I've done my job, like I've liked it,
Yeah.
and it's like I appreciate that, but what I would like you to do is click the effing link and listen
Mhm.
to the song, right?
Mhm.
Like I've had stuff that I'd be promoting for months, and then somebody's like, "Oh, wow." The 20th time you post, you're like, "Oh, that's well, you
It's
liked every
true.
other post. Why didn't you listen to it?"
So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. If you really think about it, you really have to reach any person like 8 to 10 times before they'll
Mhm.
actually like catch
Yeah.
something.
And for a lot of people too, it's like, "Oh, it's just Andrew." Like they never
Mm.
really listen to the music. That's why I like when I'm getting to know somebody and then I find out they actually listen to the music. Like they have a different reaction, like if you say you've heard, like I know whether or not you've listened to it because you'd have a different view. Like I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but it's like, like I was talking with one friend a few months ago about my brand, and she started to laugh, like not laugh at me, but like chuckle, like, "Oh, you and your brand." Like, well, yeah, like I'm a brand. Like
It's true.
I've been doing this almost 30 years, and I'm about to release album number 6 and 7 since March of 2021.
It's
So
so
Wow.
like
wild,
I'm doing some shit,
honestly.
like,
Yeah, no,
Lots
and
of
it's
shit on top of
and
that.
I'm really liking the direction. And I know we've
yeah,
talked about
Mhm.
this. I know we
yeah,
talked about this before,
yeah.
hearing all the songs in one
Right.
drive all together. You know me, I'm a huge instrumental fan. I think people who don't talk to you regularly, I think they'll see where you're going with it. I think
Mhm.
all the
Yeah,
songs relate
yeah,
and tell a story.
yeah. And it's funny because the way I start, like I'm a big believer in the order of songs as part of the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I've often, like I joked in the Rabatten, it's like, "Oh, I'm not quite ready to write my I'm Happy album yet," right?
Mhm.
And the way I ended up writing the songs, and then you get to the lyrics of the last
Don't
two
say it yet,
songs.
but
the
keep going, I guess.
Oh, sure. Well, we can tell the story later.
Yeah.
But the second to last song, no, which one is it? I can't remember which one it is. Oh, there was a time, and it's a line where it says "saying goodbye" at the end of the chorus, and originally that was not saying goodbye, and just through
Oh.
tweaking it and the emotions that I was feeling, it's like, no, I'm ready to say goodbye. Like a lot of these songs are about past breakups, a lot of the emotions that come from them, and it's like I'm actually ready to say goodbye to these emotions. And then when I wrote the last song of "It's Been a Year," I'm kind of coming back to like I think I'm ready for the happy songs. So we'll see. But they'll still be sadly optimistic. But
Yeah.
and wait till you hear the
That's
whole country album. Like that's insane. That's turning out so
Yeah,
crazy.
there's 2 songs right now that don't have a
Yes.
number. That's the start of, like,
That's the country album.
it's the Johnny Cash
Yes.
vibes,
Exactly. Yeah.
and,
Yes.
what's it
There's
called?
another one in there
Stranger.
though.
Stranger
I
Came to
freak
Town. Yeah.
Yeah, I freaking loved it. I know
Well,
you were
I
talking
even
about that too, and you sent it to me before, but I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh, wow," hearing the, like
I did research to find out what the appropriate horse. The Appaloosa it's a time
Oh, that's
period
great.
appropriate horse. And, yeah, like it's totally like it's on purpose, like Johnny Cash rip off, like every country stereotype from the old school country that I could find is in there. Like the preacher trying to shoot the stranger and all that kind of stuff is like there's a lot of you know references. Like I recorded one today. I was going to put it on the drive. I didn't get a chance to. I finished one today. Um, the soul that could not be saved is the new one, and it's just this preacher like, "I once had a heart of gold, now it burns like coal," is the chorus, and it's just this outlaw talking kind of from beyond the grave of just like, "Don't pray for me, just put a flower by my grave." It's like I love it. It's a classic. Yeah. So I was joking
Yes.
with a friend of mine. I said, "Can you imagine if this is my breakthrough album? Is like the stupid country album that I just like."
Okay, but
Not
let me
stupid.
tell you, let me tell you right now is the time to do that because country,
Yeah.
especially in
Come
many
back.
parts of the US, is becoming popular when it historically hasn't.
Yeah.
And I just finished Machine Gun Kelly's documentary,
Yeah.
and I will tell you, it inspired me when you're doing something that seems against the grain, but
Yeah.
it's not. Like,
That's me.
no, it was
Yeah.
inspiring. I was
Yeah.
thinking about you during, if you think it's not common, it probably isn't, but that's a
Mhm.
good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got a friend that's a good friend, Nasli, that you see mentioned in all my album credits. She hears everything like first because she's on the West Coast, so I know she's up when I finish it, like song at 2 a.m. And she's a psychic and a tarot card reader. And last year she did a reading for me, and she ended up using 3 decks because every good card that could come up, I got. And she's like, "I'm gonna do this
Wow.
again because this is too bad." It was just like I'm doing things my own way, like especially as a Leo, like I'm supposed to be doing things differently and my own way, and just some people aren't going to get it, but the right people will, and just do what you're doing. And that's where my phrase of momentuming came from. She just kept saying, you've been building so much momentum and momentum and momentum. And so it's sort of a new life motto of mine is momentuming, which is just every day do something to work towards the goal. And for me, the goal is just music. So there's no end game to this where it's like, oh, when I get signed to a label or when X happens and I'll be happy. No, I'm just working music. That's the goal. So nice and open-ended.
And you're just happy.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, I saw your reaction. Isn't it kind of shocking that he's a Leo?
A little bit, but I think you're like more the charismatic side of it. Yeah.
Well, I've got like
there are two.
I've got Libra rising. When I get on stage, I just kind of go into this whole other zone, the spotlight. I say shit that I afterwards, I like recording my shows because like, what did I say between songs? Because
you blacked out.
It just, yeah, I just ramble. I just talk and say whatever. And I'm a lot braver with a guitar in my hands. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you performed back in the day, but I feel the ones that I've seen, I personally love when you tell your stories in between songs. I've told you this before, but I think it's who you are, and your stories are insane. And I hope Samantha can hear some of them.
Oh, I got stories. Yeah, a lot of weed and alcohol, a little bit of acid thrown in there.
Perfect. Any great beginning to awful or fantastic story? I don't know.
Not any. That's not in my life anymore. I've had to clean up just for health reasons and stuff like that. But and then with the weed, I was just getting way too closed in on myself. So that's actually been really interesting. Getting back into music, writing sober for the first time. I didn't think I could. Because it used to be like, okay, I got this song idea, smoke a big joint and sit down and like, let's see where this goes, and you let your imagination run wild. So luckily over 25 years, I smoked enough that it's still in there. And I still have my imagination. So.
That's really funny because I don't know if you've seen, there's a friend, maybe it was last year, I think it was Machine Gun Kelly or like Miley Cyrus. They're like, I am weed. And I say the same thing about my mom. She is weed.
Nice.
Nice. But then sometimes I think people just want to smoke weed and not get creative though sometimes. It depends on the mindset that you're in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it depends what you're doing it for or whatever, right? And for me, like that's how I used to be in jam bands. Like I was at one point I was in a 15 to 20 piece funk psychedelic band as a bass player. We were the King Street Bread Machine. We had a bread maker on stage with us. And so we'd be making bread during the show. And by the end of the show, when the show would be done, we'd pull out this fresh loaf of bread and like throw it out to the audience. People tore it apart. Like it was scary.
And who hates bread?
It was scary.
People.
But I'd be sitting there, like the bread machine would be next to my bass amp. And so over the course of, you smoke a big joint before you start. And then over the course of the show, you just like getting hungry and you're just smelling this bread, more and more bread. And it's just like, oh my God, like, can we put this on the other side of the stage? Like sometimes.
Oh my God.
Hey, there are worse smells. Like if it was like a bar, like I'd rather smell bread.
Yeah. But so I've had all kinds, band experiences and stuff like that. So it's always like, how much can you drink and how much can you smoke? And then when Stop Yelling came around in Vancouver, it was more of like, hey, let's try to do a professional show and like we'll do our partying afterwards, right? Like you don't, a lot of the bands that we were kind of modeling ourselves after, they weren't drunk on stage, they were drunk backstage afterwards. And so it's just kind of a little hit before just to take the edge off and then do your show. And then like I'd get off the stage, like we'd often have a bar tab and I'd be the last one off the stage and I'd get down there after the show and it had all been used up. I haven't even had a drink yet. And it's just like, hey, come on guys. Like, it's like, at least save a beer for me, right?
I love that you've already jumped into the bands that you've been in.
Well, honestly, it's kind of crazy. Here's just a little tidbit too. When I used to travel to Canada quite often, and it always like fascinated me. Someone said that country music's really big. I forgot where I was. I think I was like in Windsor. When they told me that, I was just like, wait, what the heck? I just like didn't think that anything was like country was that popular. Like seriously, Cindy, I know your face. Like Canada.
No, that's like
like the South, and it was so big. Someone told me about some kind of rodeo festival. It was like some kind of rodeo festival.
Well, it was Calgary Stampede. It's like 2 weeks long out in Alberta. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Oh, then it
which is
had to be
like,
that because
yeah.
I actually drove to Alberta from somewhere.
Some of those smaller communities in Alberta, it's actually still 1980. It's quite fascinating when you go there.
Can you tell me which ones? I'll go.
Yeah.
Well, bad 1980, like redneck racist, you know, kind of.
I thought like the fashion
No.
side of things, the music.
Well, fashion too, but bad, like acid wash jeans, bad fashion. I don't know, like, yeah. So like I lived through all that. So yeah.
I love it. And I love how I can
Yeah.
hear your OU, OUT.
Yeah.
I don't think your accent is as strong
It can be
when you're
like
on the
I was-
border.
yeah. Yeah. I was wrestling a moose before, and he was trying to take my maple syrup, and so I said, "Hey, put him
And
up."
you rubbed in your hair.
Put 'em up.
There we go.
No, the over apologizing. How about that one? The
Mhm.
ultra
Yes,
nice.
that's true. Yes.
No, now we're getting to stereotypes.
All right,
not
sorry.
accents.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so we will bring it back really quickly. Just want to thank you. Not only do I have a friend, but now a colleague, and
Yeah.
it's helped you in some ways. So really appreciate that. I'm really excited to jump into your stories, but let's bring it all the way back. When did your career in music start? Like, what's your story? What's the beginning?
Oh, the beginning of my story? How many stories do you want? Basically, well, the start of it all, off the stage, was my spirit guide, which I firmly believe I have a spirit guide, enabled me to buy my first guitar. I was hanging out with my roommate. We were supposed to be going to college. Sorry, Mom, we weren't going. We were hanging out. If my mom tunes in, that's what that apology is for. We were hanging out at a music store all the time. And instead of going to class, and I was just sitting there one day, and as if somebody was standing right beside me. And I was like, "See that red guitar hanging up there on the wall? We're going to make sure you buy that, and you're going to start doing music." It's like, oh, okay. So I talked to the guy after a while. I worked there with the manager. That's our friend. He's like, "Oh, what's the deal with the guitar? You guys have a layaway plan, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, you pay like $40 a week, and you can get this guitar or whatever. But you got to be like a grown up. I was 17, got to have credit, stuff like that." And he's like, "Let me call the owner, and I'll ask him." And so called the owner, and it's like, no way he should have said yes. And so my parents were giving me a bag of groceries and $40 a week in cash to buy more groceries. And so Sylvain, the manager, is talking with the owner, and he says he's got $40 a week. And he's like, "You'll do it? Oh, okay." And so he got off the phone and said, "Andrew, you can take that guitar home today." And it's just like, okay, great. Didn't even know how to play. But I was just like, I'm going to be doing music. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I knew it. And it was a beautiful guitar. It was a Fender Stratocaster, and I could not make it sound good at all because I didn't know how to play. And other friends had been playing for years, and they could make this guitar just sing, right? And I was getting really discouraged. I actually stopped playing. And so I ended up selling the guitar to a friend at the time. I went to a flea market and spent $20 on just an old acoustic guitar that was just old and beat up and had lots of soul. And I honestly beat the shit out of that guitar, jamming with everybody with their fancy guitars. And I just became a super solid rhythm player. And I saw a Neil Young concert on PBS, and he was playing a song "Helpless." And at one point they zoomed in on his hands, and he's playing the whole song was 3 chords, and it was 3 chords that I knew. And it was just like, oh my God, like if Neil Young is Neil Young and he's writing these songs off of 3 chords, so can I. And so instead of trying to become like a lead player or a fancy whatever, it's just like, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter and use what I know. And I just started writing from there. And then you start hitting the open mics. So it was February of '93 was the first time I hit an open mic in Quebec, in St. Anne de Bellevue, and did Down by the River by Neil Young. And that's the medium length version of that story, I guess.
But that's kind of insane. Let's just take it back to the owner. I mean, how many people were just straight up calling owners at that time to be like, "I need that red guitar"? So how could he not say yes?
Yeah,
Calling him out of the blue.
Yeah, it's just the stars were just aligned, like it was supposed to happen, right? And it was. I've never been happier than when I've been doing music. It's just what I'm supposed to be doing. It's part of my mission, I think, to help other people through my music. And so that's something maybe we'll get more into, but that's something that's the big push of why I'm doing this, is to help other people.
I'm very curious.
Mhm.
From the moment that you started playing music to getting up on that stage, like what was the time in between? Because I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge if you're not
Yeah,
used to being in the spotlight like that.
it was probably mm, like 13 months, honestly. I was just trying to do the math in my head. Like it was barely a year. Yeah. So,
That's
because
like,
I didn't even move to that town to like a year before. So maybe even less than a year, like 10, 11 months. Yeah.
I feel like that's like really good. I feel
Also
like it would take me a
learning.
Yeah.
lifetime to get
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
stage.
Well, that was just, it was, I wasn't getting up there with my own stuff. That took another year. It was
Yeah.
94 before I sort of felt comfortable with my own music, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to be brave enough to get up there and play my own songs. But I mean, it takes time, and then it's like I think that's just something you got to do. Like you just gotta like try. That's something I try to teach my kids, is to try it. Like don't be like, oh, I can't do that. Try it. You might, one particular night you might get booed off the stage and go, okay, well that didn't work so well. I think maybe I'll try it differently next time. But you still
So that
gotta
did
try.
happen then.
No, I've never been booed off the stage. I've been
Oh,
quite fortunate with
nice.
that. Yes. First time I tried it, it worked. So yeah, but again, it's just I'm not a spotlight seeking person, but that I can still remember that feeling. That first feeling of the spotlight on me was like, yes, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this.
I feel like I've touched a little bit of that
Yeah,
before, like just that like
yeah.
high, that innate, like no matter, I would describe it as like the best fun I've ever had or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah, and it's different. We're in this kind of in the same boat now with me, like releasing my albums digitally and stuff, where like there's no release party, and so like midnight I hit publish on like Bandcamp and DistroKid, and then it's just like silence. Okay, like there's no applause or like it's like, okay, well that just happened, yay, I guess I'll go to bed now. But and it's the same too, like you do your interviews, you do your podcast, and then you post it, and then you wait, you hope you get some of that feedback from people where they're like, hey, wow, I love that episode, and that kind of, you gotta post it and then wait for the reaction, which is very different from being on stage, where a reaction is
It's
immediate.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Someone's in this virtual world. Like I'm sure you felt it for your birthday
Mhm.
show that you did last year, doing it virtual these days. You don't get that the same face
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah. But I don't mind. I mean, I'm looking forward to doing live shows again. But I've had a realization in the last month. I've been a stay-at-home dad for the last almost 10 years. And I've come to the realization that I'm a stay-at-home musician. And I really like that. I like not leaving the house. I like doing, like, I have a friend, I do kids music as well, and I've got a friend that's a teacher in the Bahamas. And so I'm in Braeside, Ontario, about 40 minutes west of Ottawa, our capital city. And so my friend's got a kindergarten class in the Bahamas. And last year I did a show for them from my basement through my phone, just on Zoom, and they have a smart board in all the classrooms now, right? And so I was like huge on the wall. They could see me, and they had a camera. I could see them and watch them dancing and stuff like that. And it's like I'll never get to
Aw.
the Bahamas to do a show for a kindergarten class, but I just did one. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I
I
didn't
mean,
leave the house.
and that's the
Did the
coolest
kid
thing. Yeah.
did the kids like it?
Oh, they
Or what
loved
was
it.
the
Yeah.
feedback?
No, I've been really lucky. Like because I have my two girls, and so I kind of accidentally fell into writing kids music on the side, because my kids are weird like me, in a good way. We're proud of our weirdness, and so they'll just say weird things. It's like, oh, gee, boy, that'd make a great song. And so I wrote the first kids album that I did, and I thought it was great. And only my kids had heard it; they loved it. And it wasn't until I did that first show through on an online show for a local class, where it's like, do our other kids even gonna like this music? Like I had no idea, and like they loved it. Like the kids are really like my stuff, so that's really cool. I mean, the parents do too. So my number one rule for kids music is don't be annoying for parents.
Yes.
And so that's, I really keep that in mind when my songwriting on the kids side of thing. And so yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. It's a nice way I can explore the happier side with the kids music, and then having daughters of my own, I really try to focus on it being uplifting and empowering. songs. Like I'm not writing a gross song just for laughs or whatever. And
Yeah.
you know, so I'm trying to have some intelligence behind the music, but do it in a fun, you know, kind of silly way.
You still bring in your songwriting style, just
Yes, exactly.
a
Yeah.
little bit different.
Yep. Yeah.
Although I can't necessarily imagine the kids' music being a little bit more on the sadly optimistic side.
Yeah.
It's got to be all
Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah. Uplifting and empowering is what
Yeah,
I
they'll
tell
learn
Yeah.
that
people.
later
Yeah.
on in
Yes.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I carry that carries through into the kids music. There's like, you know, there's hints of Johnny Cash in there, there's hints of Neil Young and those sounds. And it's you know, like kids are smart, you don't have to give them like, you know, silly little things or whatever, little jingles. Like you can give them something to think about, something to chew on with songs. Yeah.
Curious, other than dabbling into kids' music, how has your songwriting or your music evolved since you started?
Since I started, okay, well that goes a long way, but yeah. Well, so I always tried to be just like solid rhythm player, right? And be that singer songwriter observer. I've always been kind of an observer, but then trying to share my own experiences. And the best music comes out of breakups. I think it was Frank Zappa, I think, was said, you know, like 95% of songs are about finding love or losing love. It's just you got to make yours more interesting, right? And so I've always tried to keep that in mind, but you know, was never in very good relationships for a number of years, and or no relationships. So there's that, like, you know, the longing to be loved, and you know, so that makes for good songwriting. And then I met the lady that would become my wife, and I kind of stopped writing songs. So I didn't need to. Like I was happy. I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, I'm like happy. And so but I would always wait. In the past, I'd always wait for inspiration to hit me, whether, you know, like something happening, whether it's that breakup, or you you're hope to meet somebody and you don't, you know, that kind of thing, and to get kind of like a line in my head or something, you know, and I build a song around that emotion. And so lately, in the past year, I think like a lot of people watch the that Peter Jackson documentary on the Beatles that was on Disney Plus, and it was fascinating for me to watch. I know some other people that, you know, not musicians, that were kind of like, oh, this is kind of long, but for me it was just fascinating to watch them. And so there's one scene, and they shared this scene actually a lot online when they're promoting it, where Paul McCartney is just sitting, like they have 30 days to like try to write this album, and so they're like, you know, we need songs, and Paul's just sitting there on his bass, and Ringo's there, and George is there. Ringo's just kind of like yawning, smoking a cigarette, and Paul starts playing this riff on the bass, and then he just kind of starts humming to the riff, and then he starts kind of going, get back, and it's like the birth of the song Get Back. Like he it blew my mind, like wow, he went looking for that. Like he didn't wait to be inspired, he went looking. And so once I finished that documentary, I actually watched it all like 2 or 3 times at this point, but it just led me in to the music room, into the studio that I have here. And it's like, you know, instead of waiting for inspiration, I'm going to chase after it. And so the last album that I put out last spring, The Robotanist, that's the first time, like the first couple albums that I put out was just basically going through the back catalog of all my old
Mhm.
songs. And it's like, oh, we did, this was really popular with the band, Stop Yelling, let's put this one out, because I know some people will want to hear it. And so with The Robotanist, that's the first time I've ever sat down to write an album in its entirety, as with songs that are in that, you know, similar sounds, similar moods. And every song on that album, and every song since, has been me chasing inspiration as opposed to waiting for it to come. And so it's been a really fascinating change. I'm like, I don't know where it's going. I've got a quote here on my wall. If I get it right, it's just written in pen, but it's from that documentary. George Harris, at the end of that, making that album, they're going to do a TV special, a live TV special, and everything kept kind of falling apart and changing. And George quit the band for a while, and so everybody's arguing about this was all going to become. And George says, well, you know, we're the Beatles, whatever it's going to be, it becomes that. And I just was
Mhm.
like, that was another light bulb moment for me, where, and I, by no way am I comparing myself to the Beatles, so in case anybody makes that mistake. But whenever I'm writing a song and working on a song and recording a song, I'm always looking over at that quote on my wall. And it's kind of, you know, even for me, it's like, where is this album going? And like, oh, that's, you know, okay, that's a different sound, that's a different song, where is this going? And then I just kind of look at that quote, and it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it's going, it's going somewhere, and whatever it's going to be, well, that's what it is. And so I've used that on the Robotanist, and then on the new one that's coming out, Haunted Cowboy Sounds, is it's evolved even further. That's a whole other story.
I love everything that you said, even when you like went back to what you think about the own genre of your sound, like sadly optimistic. It really is a mindset with all of this.
Mm,
And I think about this like seriously all day when I'm like trying to be like, oh, I just need to let something come and I'll wait. But then I realize my mindset's like thinking of other things. When I mean like I'm waiting, it really means like, I don't know, maybe I'm distracted or I'm like waiting for something to come to me, but I'm thinking of 100 million things at the same
yeah,
time that's never going to come to me.
yeah,
And like and so when you put your mindset to it, then you're only going to focus on that or think about that in a certain period of time. So I just really appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes you got to step away too, right? And just be like, okay, I gotta, you know, gotta stop thinking about this and let things kind of freshen up, and let your ears freshen up, and then, you know, come back at it. But when I'm working on an album, I try to, I can do a lot of recording at night, like wait for my kids to go to bed, because we're, you know, here at home. And I'll try to, you know, try to finish a song on a particular night, and I'll try to have the next one ready to go before I kind of close up shop here, where it's like, okay, you know, okay, that song's done, great, I'm really happy with that one. Grab the guitar, just start strumming quietly, look for chords, and that sort of thing, and just see what, you know, always see what comes up, and always have something ready to go for the next time. And then, you know, come back again fresh, like, oh, okay, what was that chord? I usually make a little video for myself, so I've forgotten probably as many songs as I've written over the years. And so you make a little video, and you come back, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool chord progression, okay, what can we do with that? What's this going to be? So yeah.
And
Well,
so what is your process? Like, do you start out with emotion? Do you start out with a certain chord? How do you get started on a new song or
Yeah,
a new general overview of an album?
yeah, it used to be kind of different every time, and but it was often, it would be like a phrase or something that somebody said that would be like, oh, okay, oh, that's, you know, that would trigger a song. And so now for me, it's usually like with the new album, Haunted Cowboy Sounds, as opposed to being a storytelling album, it's more of it's telling the story of feelings more. So I was kind of using the sort of the heartache, I guess, and longing, lost love from my past, to kind of work through like emotional baggage and stuff for this album. And so the process for that one was just sitting down, um, usually with the guitar, and then doing I call it the McCartney method now, where it's just like finding, you know, because I know certain keys work with my voice and that sort of stuff, right? So you just kind of, you know, look for something original, which isn't always easy to do, because it's like, oh no way, that sounds like the song that I did, you know, 3 weeks ago. Okay, try a different starting chord. So then usually it would be, for me, it's finding the chords and the chord progression, and then I start humming, and I see what kind of words just emerge. The word, they just, it's the damnedest thing, they just show up. And sometimes I don't even know the direction, like, okay, where's this song going? But then if you get that solid one or two lines, then you build off of that, and go from there, using that underlying, like for this last album, it's the underlying feeling for the whole album, but then you know, using the emotions, and seeing what bubbles up, I guess, really, yeah, through humming.
and that's actually something that I was going to ask you too. Like, have you ever felt that you started creating the same sound over and over again? Like, especially if you're creating as many songs as you are in 30 days. Didn't you tell me that there's a story behind the idea of the Haunted Cowboy?
There's a good electric guitar effect that I use in the Robotanist album, and it's kind of well, it's called Endless Ambient. It's in the program that I use for recording. So it just creates this like a never-ending sound, and I would use it sort of like as a little like ping, and then it would like echo on, for a while throughout like a verse or whatever. And so when I sat down, so I wrote a new song. Well, it's not new, I had written a new song called "She Came with the Rain," and I thought I was sitting down to write a follow-up to the Robotanist album. I thought he still, for those that don't know, the Robotanist is a little robot botanist friend of mine, my mascot. And there's a story on my website. You can check it out. And so I thought he had more, and I still think he has more stories to tell. And so I was sitting down to write, the next Robotanist album. And so I wrote, recorded the guitars and the vocals for it. And so I was like, oh, I'll put in that effect. And it wasn't quite sounding right. And so about halfway through the song, I was like, I wonder what happened if I actually played chords with this effect on. So I'd never tried that before. And it just created this whirling, rolling, weird sort of like pedal steel, psychedelic pedal steel kind of sound, like the pedal steel, the lap steel instrument you hear a lot in country music. And so it's like, wow, I think this is really cool. And so I sent the early version of that song to friends like yourself, and was like, well, like halfway through, listen for the haunted cowboy sounds. And so after texting like 5 or 6, check for the haunted cowboy sound. It's in there. It's really cool. And the more a couple of days went by, and it's just like, I think that's the theme for I think that's the name of the album, is Haunted Cowboy Sounds. And so where's that? What is that going to become? And so the next song that I ended up writing was a song called Candace. It'll be the second song on the album. And it's sort of a mix of a new work and then some old lyrics that I'd had from a different song that I'd been hoping to record, but it wasn't a strong enough song on its own, but some of it was still workable. And that was a day years ago, probably, 22 years ago. So walking down these railroad tracks, and all these things were kind of happening. I was like, there's a shortcut there through some trees, and these were lines that were in that original song. And I heard this mom was calling her daughter Candace. She was like, Candace, Candace. So there's a line in that song, Candace, your mom is calling, in the original version. And so when I started writing, the next song on the album, I started realizing, okay, well, maybe that's part of what is haunting this character. He's not a cowboy, but the haunted cowboy sound, it's something, that lost love with Candace. And so that sort of created, okay, well, there's the next. So now the storyteller of the album, now he's got a backstory where it's going to jump. Like I told my kids the name of the album. They'd been away. And so I did about 48 hours straight here in the music room. And I got 4 songs done, and a 5th and 6th started in the 2 days that they were away. And so when they came home, it's like, oh yeah, I got, Dad's working on a new album. And they're, what's it called? Well, my youngest daughter was like, is it kids' album? I was like, oh no, sorry. And I was like, it's called Haunted Cowboy Sounds. And right away they were just like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like zombies and ghosts. Is he a vampire? I'm like, no, it's nothing like that. And I said, it's more emotional haunting. And so my youngest, my 5-year-old Alec, and I'm going to use this in my social media promotion for the album. She's like, okay, so there's a cowboy and things have happened to him and now he feels haunted. Like, yes, that's exactly it. He feels haunted. You're 5 and you get it. Good for you. And
sometimes it's that easy.
So then I just built off of there to start telling the story. And like I was saying, it's really freed up a lot of the emotional baggage that I had from past relationships and stuff. And because I don't think anybody wants to hear me write a song like I love my wife and things are wonderful. That's the way it is, but
because everyone's going to feel jealous. Like 50% of America is going to feel jealous.
No one can relate.
So, but it's been good for me to kind of go back, and I'm feeling lighter. Like I've cleared out some junk just by creating these songs, and then hopefully, I've created music that other people will hear and then just be like, oh, okay. Like I use the word sometimes a lot in my music, and that's kind of part of the sadly optimistic style. Is just like the belief that things are going to be okay. And so if I've got if I want to put a line in a song that's like, oh, I feel alone, like I'm feeling really down. Well, I don't always feel that way. And I don't want anybody else to always feel that way. And if they are feeling that way, I want them to feel that there's a chance that things will be better. So I put a line in the song, sometimes I feel alone. or some, sometimes da 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 da. And it gives you an exit strategy, right? It's a way out of from that bad feeling. Is there's a chance, it's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a train. Sometimes it's goodness.
You know what? That is a perfect move on to Lonesome Waltz, another song with some in it. You're not lonely, you're lonesome.
Yes.
And so I saw that in your early mix that you sent, sorry listeners, that you didn't have that song in your early mix, but then it was in the final mix and you put
Yeah.
it like in the middle of the album.
Yeah.
So part of my thought was thinking, how do you choose the order of your tracks on an album, especially when you created it a couple months before?
I kind of have the order in mind while I'm making it.
Okay.
So for me, so for that one, so for Haunted Cowboy Sound, one of the things I wanted to do, again, I'm talking about the Beatles again, was do something that they didn't do, which was to actually finish the album in 30 days. And so it was like
Amazing.
probably the final hours of day 30. And I wasn't in the music room for like 30 days straight. It was like most of the album was done in two 48-hour chunks. And so when I hit day 30, there was two songs. Lonesome Waltz was one of them that I had, and so, and the friends that I shared it with is like, okay, this is like, I'm calling it, I'm saying I'm, like I did the album, I did it in 30, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to repair some things. And so it kind of felt like a cheat, like just a little bit, because these songs were worked on. They weren't quite, they needed help. They needed to be repaired. So with that one, it was, in this album too, maybe I should tell a bit of the story of how I ended up with instrumentals, because I don't know if there's somebody in this conversation that inspired the first instrumental that I did on the last album. I don't know if she wants to identify herself or not, but I wrote a song on the last album called Wednesday Song, and I was inspired by an engagement picture that I saw on Instagram. And so I was trying to write the song, and it's like, okay, this is going to be my happy song. Like, it's a happy picture, and I'm going to talk about my wife as well too. And we'll be married, I think, 18 years this year. And I kept trying to write the lyrics, and it just wasn't working out. Nothing fit. And I'd record it late at night, like playing it really quietly. And when I tried to re-record it, I just couldn't get the same feeling. And like I'd recorded it kind of as a demo. And it's just like, you know what? I think sometimes you don't need words. I had the realization, like sometimes you don't need to say something, and you can let the music convey, or the melody convey the emotion. I think I captured it well with that song. And so going in with Haunted Cowboy Sounds, I was thinking, you know what? I can use the instrumentals to kind of push the narrative or change the mood a little bit, to kind of break up just the, like, oh my gosh, he's lonely. Yes, we get it. We know he's lonely. So put in something that's a little brighter, and just kind of start to shift things. And so with Lonesome Waltz in particular, that kind of got slotted in there. I think it's song number 7, where it's, okay, this is the turning point. This is the last lonely dance. And there's some realizations as I get towards the end of the album, where it's like, you know what, I've used the phrase a lot, emotional baggage, but I think I've cleared out some of these emotions that I've been dragging around. And so, yeah, so I keep that in mind. And then on like the Robotanist album as well too, as I'm going and I'm writing songs, like, oh, that's killer, like that's got to be the opening song, and this one's going here and that one's going there. You start to have your list. I try to get at least 30 minutes on every album, so it varies on the number of songs, usually 10 or 12. And it's like, okay, I need a song number 8. Like, I got something here, and I got something, I got something at 6 and 7, I got 9, I know where it's going to end. What's going to get me to the end? And so I'll write a song kind of specifically for the spot where I think it should be in the album.
You're trying to lead the listener of where to go with you on this journey.
Before we get too far from it was me. That engagement photo was
Oh
me.
my gosh.
And also, I don't think I told you this,
You showed me and
Andrew.
told
I
me.
think I told you I was playing the Wednesday song on my TV, and Anthony was like, doing something else in the apartment. But he walked by and he's like, "This is such a beautiful song. Wow, I've never heard this before. Who is this?" And I told him about you and the backstory of it a little bit. And then we ended up having it on one of our playlists for our wedding. So
Yeah, and I'm so honored by that. That's like bucket list kind of thing that I didn't even know I wanted on my bucket list. Like it's such a huge honor to write something, you know, with someone in mind. I don't think I would have had anywhere near the same kind of song if there's lyrics on it. Like I don't think I would have done that feeling justice if I had put words to it. So and then so on the new album there's also an instrumental called Colorado Song. I seem to be inspired by pictures of people hiking through Colorado on Instagram.
I'm inspired by that too.
But it's interesting because then it's like you know if you write your chord progression, then you're looking for that uplifting sort of melody, and so for me it's the mountains that do it. Maybe it's because I spent 12 years in Vancouver where the mountains are like right there, and I don't miss Vancouver, but I miss the mountains. Sorry, Vancouver. Yeah, just there's something about, you know, when you want to get those up the peaks and valleys basically of a song, right? And so if you have those soaring mountains in mind, it's I don't know, it works for me.
I have a question for you. What have you learned about yourself over the years, like from when you were playing back then, took a break, and then now?
Boy, that's a tricky one. See,
Yeah.
I pretended to interview myself for like the last month in anticipation of this, and that's a question I didn't ask myself. What did I learn? I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, and I've learned that I'm happier than I thought in my life and situations. And I've got a friend here in town. Like I'm close to a farming community, and partway through the recording of this last album, I was helping my buddy. We were unloading hay, and so the loft isn't too far up, but like we were able to have a conversation while we're doing it. And I'm down on the wagon, and we're making hay for his wife's horses, and so you know we're hot. It's like 40 degrees, and it's like 8 o'clock at night, and everybody's just like, "Oh, living the dream, eh?" And you know, okay, we're just joking around, and I put a bail on the elevator that was taking up the loft. And it's like, you know what, I am like I'm doing what I want to do. I have a wonderful family that support me in this. I'm here on a sunny day. I'm helping my friend, and I'm able to do what I want to do. Like I am living the dream. Like I'm happy. Like, you know, if the dream brought in more income, that would be okay too. But yeah, so that's something I've learned. Is just like, you know, because I've battled depression and anxiety. I think we all have to some degree. Self-esteem has always been a big issue for me, and not feeling a strong sense of self-worth, and so you know, in trying to share that through my music, and then hopefully it helps lift somebody else up, and while I'm kind of lifting myself up at the same time.
Hey, you're hired.
Especially with your new album that's about to come out. I do not feel any of that from like the music, just because it feels, I mean, it feels like optimistic. It feels like emotion that is like you're getting the best emotion out of everybody. But I love the fact that you do bring up like still just wanting to be happy through it all.
Isn't that the goal for real?
Yeah,
yeah,
it really is. If you could choose one person, and try to not make it the Beatles maybe, but if you could choose one person to collab with, who would you want to?
Cool. Can I bring somebody back from the dead? Is that too gross or weird? Or
yes. Who?
Well, he's British as well. Nick Drake. There's a British songwriter, Nick Drake. He passed away in 1974, 3 months after I was born. And this would be a different conversation if it was 3 months before, because I'm a big believer in reincarnation, and I would be wondering if like there's some Nick Drake in me somewhere. But just really similar style. He battled depression, and he died of it's not known whether it was on purpose or accidental overdose of his medication that he was taking. But just beautiful songwriter. He invented guitar tunings. So that's the other interesting part of Haunted Cowboy Sounds, was that I tried to learn. He's one of my wife's favorite songwriters, and so I wanted to learn one of his songs for her. And of course, I'm not I'm not Nick Drake. I'm not reincarnated. So I learned it, and then it's like, I can't do it. But I end up learning one of his tunings. And so the neat thing with Haunted Cowboy Sounds is it's almost, I think 90% of it is written in a Nick Drake tuning, which is totally different from anything I had ever used before. So it's basically like relearning where a lot of the notes are on the guitar, where it's like, oh, you're expecting to find something in a certain spot, and it's like, oh, it's not there anymore. Like I tuned that note away. So I would love to just even if it wasn't even a collaboration, but just spend some time with them, because the beautiful mind that created, like, to just invent tunings and wow, what were you thinking? Like, how did you even come up with that? Like, it's, and then maybe we could jam. There'll be times where I'll be at home and I'll be like listening to Nick Drake, and one of my kids will be like, oh, Dad, did you record a new song?
That is amazing
Yeah.
for someone that knows you super well, or I would
Yeah.
hope.
Yes.
Now moving on to you, we have one more question, and I
Mm.
bet you know what it is.
Yes.
So Samantha,
1, 2, 3. What do you want to be known for?
See, it's
Well-
tricky. I feel like I'm at an advantage and a disadvantage in that I've listened to every episode, some of them, many times, and I knew this was coming, but then that's also like, I knew this was coming. Like, oh no,
Pressure's on.
what am I going to say? Yeah, but I think one of and we kind of touched on it already, and so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I want to be known as someone that helped others, whether that's through sharing knowledge or just giving my my time, to like other musicians or other people, and just to be genuinely wanting to help. I think that's something too. A lot of people often, they help where, like, I'll do something for you, but what can you do for me? I try to avoid that aspect of my life, and it's just like, I want to help. And some people are shocked that, like, like, well, you want to help with no strings attached. But I think then through my music is just that it's, it's a crazy world out there. Like, I had a song on an album from last year called Maybe in Saskatchewan, and it's a song about one of my hardest breakups. And it was, I'd gotten into a relationship with someone that I was moving west. We were in Ontario, and I was going to be moving west, and she was going to be moving east. And it was like a very special person to me, but we started a relationship with an end date. And we were going to exact opposite ends of the country. And so after we broke up, I'd written this song, Maybe in Saskatchewan, where it's like, maybe if we lived in the middle of the country, we could love each other. And so I wrote this song, and so it sat, on the streaming services and stuff. And I guess it was in June, I saw that somebody in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, so it's one of the cities in that province in Canada, had listened to that song like 22 times in like a 2-week period. I don't know, and it's just, I'm assuming it's the same person. So I never get any other hits from Saskatoon. They're all on that song on YouTube. And it's like, wow, somebody in Saskatoon is going through some stuff, man. And so I actually did it. I ended up doing a social media post and explaining the background of that story. And I was just like, like, whoever you are in Saskatoon, if you hear like I, in my mind, I wonder, and I hope that, like, maybe I helped that person through something, and like maybe there was a breakup, or maybe they just really like that song. And I also want, if I could add one more thing, I want to be known as somebody that tried, like just do it. Like, I always tell my kids to dream big, because you never know how far you're going to get to. You might not get to where you thought you were going, but you're going to get somewhere because you had that big dream and you followed it. We had a guest that was on, a couple of seasons ago, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he was just saying, just enjoy the process. And that's something I've taken that to heart since I heard that. And that has really fueled, well, a lot of things that the guests of the setup have said has really fueled my music career in the last couple of years. But that was one of them, where it's just like, just enjoy it all, enjoy the process, and don't get to a release date and oh, now what? It's just enjoy every moment of it, and the good and the bad, and try.
I want to be known as someone that tried as well.
Yeah.
I mean, a 10-song album in 30 days. I don't know if that's trying or
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, he did the dang thing. Like
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
was telling me about it, I was like, what the heck?
Because I'm actually gonna market the release of this one properly, I've had enough time to do a mini EP of like a Johnny Cash style country album at the same time that I'll just release on the same day.
We'll share all the links. And for anyone who wants to connect with Andrew Rodger, you can find him on Instagram or on his website on andrewrodgermusic.com.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and that's where we just started a new blog that's there, and like that's sort of the hub. Like I love social media, but the website is kind of my hub where because I want to connect with people. I don't want to be yelling into the void of Twitter and like hope somebody hears it. Like let's connect and get to know each other, and so I really use my website as that hub for making connections. Yeah.
It's very important, honestly, especially for musicians. Like whenever I'm listening to music and like, I'm on Spotify and I want to learn more about an artist that I'm following and they don't have a website, I'm like so confused. I'm like, how am I going to know more about them? Look at their post and see what they're doing now. No, I want to know about their entire life. And so
who let them who let them not have a website? Like somebody should be fired for that.
It's so common. It's really common. It's
It
crazy.
really is.
They'll have like a link tree. So when they could easily
Yes.
have Bandzoogle.
Yes. And you know what's so crazy that I've been like kind of like doing is that sometimes the link tree doesn't really like work that well. When people post it on like their Instagram, it just re-Instagrams it, like for me, for the user error. And I think that's so frustrating because I don't know what's going on. And then I think I'm doing something wrong and I'm really not. I think there's just an issue, but
well, Samantha, that's actually an issue that's been happening over the last week more than anything. So I'm also experiencing that. Yeah. And also I think it's like a Facebook, Instagram thing where they're trying to block certain domains because
it goes to Google Chrome. So they're trying to stop it whenever if you swapped it.
Yeah, exactly. Andrew, we did it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's just such an honor to be part of like my first release was a cassette in '96 and to take a big chunk from a break from music and then to come back to music in this whole other world of streaming and websites and social media and stuff. So to come back and find the help that you've been offering to people has just it's been a life changer for me.
We're really excited.
And Andrew too. So like me and Sydney had the same exact thought process. I texted her one day. I'm like, you know what we should do? We should like interview indie artists this round. And we should have Andrew first. And she's like, I was gonna tell you like, or maybe she texted me at the same time. I'm like, well, I guess we just decided that's exactly what's gonna happen.
See, all my wishing paid off on the wishing star. It worked. Yes.
We really appreciate your time.
And I hope I gave you something worthwhile.
I don't know. It's always so nice to take something away from every episode.
Nice to chat with you and get to know you a little bit and like we should do this again.
I can't wait to connect again.
Perfect.
Great. Team meeting, the co-conspirators. Yes.
All right. See you guys.
Okay, bye.